Okay, we're going to fit the or dry fit the control horns to the ailerons. We've already cut the slots out that are pre-cut. You'll notice that also we've removed a section of the film which will be covered by the base plate of the dual horns. Now you may wonder, why do you do a dry fit, and why would you have two types of horn on the same aileron? If you consider that the wing is tapered, so therefore the actual thickness of the aileron diminishes as it goes out towards the tip. Okay, we're going to do a dry run with the control horns for the aileron. As you can see, we've got the wing or control horns denoted by the W, and we got number 1 there and number 2 there, which are obviously 1 slot is for 1 and 2 slot for 2. Now, the reason you got 2 sizes of horn is you've got a tapered wing, and we want the measurement from the center point or the hinge point of the aileron to the center point of the control push rod to be the same at both ports on the aileron. So if we had 2 control horns the same height, because one is tapered to the other, one position is tapered to the other one, then that wouldn't work. So Skywings calculated that the distance from the hinge point to where the ball joint bolts on is equal in the installation with the different height horns. So therefore, when it comes to setting your geometry up with your servos, they should be extremely close. So we're going to just slot these in. Obviously this goes in this port here on the aileron, and this goes in to the inner port. So you will notice also that this base plate is more or less on the end of the taper of the aileron there, whereas this one is set back just slightly. And what we do, well, what we do here, whether it's something you would like to try, I don't know, is we get a 3mm carbon rod, and in the old-fashioned way of doing things, you can actually see that the carbon rod is parallel to the hinge point all the way along. Now I'm just going to exaggerate. Like if I was to bring that up and bring that back, you'll see that this lines up with the hinge point here, but here it's quite a way out down this end. So what we do is we push it all in as a dry fit, check that geometry is all right. There could be a little bit of material in there, could be a little bit of glue, which would set the position incorrect for the horn itself. So once we've got the positions confirmed, because you're going to have glue in your hands, and you know what happens when you have glue on your hands, it always goes wrong. So we mark the position exactly of the base. So we've got a point to work to. There we go. So next stage is to mix your adhesive up, and prior to actually applying adhesive to the horns, we just wipe the area which is going to take the adhesive on each horn, here and here, all the area that we flatten back, with acetone, because obviously there's grease and which can end up putting a film on the actual control horn, and that will make the glue joint not so good. So next stage is to mix our epoxy, We use skin and epoxy here, which we mix with cotton microfibers, which is an immensely strong combination. You can use a good quality slow adhesive, but it's what you can get hold of. The viscosity of the glue we use, even though it's got the cotton microfibers in, which I'll show you us mixing it up in a minute, we can actually put it in with a syringe, so we can put it deep into each pocket and ensure that there's plenty of glue and it goes everywhere. So without further ado, we'll set up and mix some epoxy. Okay, so we're just going to prep our horns prior to the application of the adhesive. So I've got a small pot here with pure acetone in it, and all I'm going to do is basically wash the area, and it soon evaporates. That we're going to put the adhesive on, and carefully then place them on a paper towel. So those are then ready to be applied with adhesive and placed into the aileron pockets. Right, mixing adhesive for installing these horns. You can either use something like a high quality 30-minute epoxy, something like this Bob Smith Industries. Excellent product. The viscosity is slightly thicker than what we're going to mix here, and the reason I like what we do, the way we do it, we have a very controlled application of adhesive. We're going to run 5 grams of epoxy. This is AT30 epoxy. So to the bottom of the pot. There we go. So we're after 5 grams. You can see it's quite a lot of epoxy for the weight. There we go. So we're up to 4.1, 2. There we go. 5. So, and we add 2 grams, or 1.5 grams actually, we can, but so we go 5.5. 6.5 on the Richter scale here. There we go, 6.5. So that's our ratios correctly measured, and we mix that up. As you can see, it's the consistency of sort of soup, really, which is a bit thin in its raw state. Get it right in the corners of the mixing cup. Make sure it's well and truly mixed together. And we take a couple of pinches, like Jamie Oliver, of cotton flock. It's like a cotton wool type material, hollow fibres. And you can see it doesn't take a lot to thicken it up, but the strength increase is quite phenomenal. So mixed in, still quite thin, look, and pour that into our syringe. Probably do for the minute. So get all the air out, and now all we've got is adhesive. So we then apply the adhesive deep inside the pockets. And just run the stick, the mixing stick, down. So you can see we can get quite a lot more adhesive in here. A little bit around the base. Pour a vacuum on the syringe, and we pick up our our horns, and just slot that in for the first time. Pull them back out and see what the coverage of epoxy is. So we can see we can actually apply some more epoxy into the slot. Like so. Take our horn again. Now you can see the epoxy is starting to, you can see that still this pocket here is a little bit dry on the outer side, but the epoxy is starting to go into the slots. So this should be sufficient to do the job. So, okay, we've got our syringe full of the adhesive, and we don't want to waste any, so we're trying to get the air out. There we go. So we fill the pocket each side with adhesive. Pour a vacuum on the syringe, and with one of our McDonald's coffee mixers, get the adhesive to all areas of each pocket. So that's our second application of adhesive. So the pockets are starting to fill with the adhesive now, and it's time to just put a little bit around our base plate as well. It will seep out anyway, but let's just wet the area. Okay, so notice we try and put everything on paper towels, keep it nice and clean. Right, we're just going to push this in for our first evaluation of the spread of the adhesive to the horns. So we can see that the adhesive is working its way up the horns, and we want the adhesive to fill all the cutouts within that base to give a better mechanical grip on the aileron itself. So in we go again, and this time we should see significant increase in adhesive around the horns. It's a little tricky. You notice we're using gloves, obviously, so this one's still a little bit dry on both sides. So just to help the process as well, we're going to put some adhesive in here. And then we're going to fill the pockets up with the remaining adhesive. There we go. Job done. So in for the final time. Now this adhesive takes 24 hours to cure. So if you're in a rush, which you shouldn't be when you're building something like this, obviously you might look at the 30-minute option. Now you'll see that the glue is now starting to come out from all the joints, so we can, excuse me, clean up any excess adhesive. You don't want it to make it look, you want to make sure it's a neat job. After all, we spent a lot of money on our airframe. So, as you can see, we can maneuver this just slightly to get it to fit exactly on our markings. So that is now in place, and just as an extra bit of insurance, we'll just do a double check that we can line our hinge line up, which is absolutely spot on. So that concludes the control horns installation on the ailerons.